Welcome to our class on Chassidus. We're going to be learning a beautiful, powerful Chassidic discourse from the Rebbe. The name of the Chassidic discourse is called Vavraham Zokein. The Rebbe said this Chassidic discourse on Shabbos Parshas Chayei. That year was also the Shabbos that blessed the month of Kislev in the year Tavshin Lamed Zayin, which is 48 years ago. The Rebbe went on to certify and edit this Chassidic discourse in honor of the 25th day of the month of Cheshvan in the year Tavshin Nun, which is exactly 35 years ago, in honor of the most powerful and clear day of the day of Chafhei Marcheshvan. So again, the Chassidic discourse is based on the verse in the Torah portion where it says, "Va'Avram Zokein Baba Yomim." Avram was old, coming in days. And it says, "V'Hashem Beirach as Avram Bakoil." Hashem, God blessed Abraham Bakoil with everything. So the Rebbe Rashab, in the Chassidic discourse with this title, in the year Taf Reish Samach Vav, so he asks a question. It says, Hashem blessed him Bakoil with everything. What is everything? What did he bless him with? What does Bakoil mean? Okay, and the point of the explanation is that Koil is a level of godliness which is called in Hebrew Helem Ha'atzmi, the deepest concealment, the essential concealment that from the ear all revelations come from. That's what he blessed them with. Huge blessing. And like the Zohar says, based on the verse where it says, V'Hashem Beirach as Avram Bakoil, so the Zohar says, the Avram Yisborech, Abraham was blessed, Me'atar dechol bircha nafki mitamon, from the place that all the blessings come from there. And that's why the verse says Bakoil, without saying any details, because it's infinite. It's much deeper and higher than details. Everything comes from there. Rebbe says we have to understand the connection between the explanation of the Zohar, that he blessed him from the source of all the blessings. And Rashi says, what does Bakoil mean? He blessed him with Yitzchok. What is the connection between Bakoil and Yitzchok? So Rashi is very simple. Bakoil, if you take the letters Koil, Koil is made up of Chaf and a Lamed, which Chaf is 20 and Lamed is 30, and Beis is 2. Bakoil is with everything, so the total number is 52, which is the same numerical value as Bein a son, which is Beis is 2 and Nun is 50. So the question is, what's the connection between these two? Also, when you read further on the verses, so what it seems is that Abraham was older, and he blessed him. It's an introduction to what it says afterwards, that Abraham told the servant, you should go ahead and you should find for me a wife for my son Yitzchak. So the question is, what's the connection between Hashem blessing him with everything? And like we said, the Zohar says it's in the source of all the blessings, and from there all the blessings come out, to what it says afterwards, that he sent his servant to find a wife for his son. Also, we have to understand the tremendous idea of the marriage between Yitzchak and Rivka, which is even higher than Bakoil, the source of all the blessings. And not only that, because the reason why Hashem blessed him with anything is an introduction to the marriage. So obviously the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka is much higher. Ever since we're going to understand this with an introduction, what it says in the Medrash, a powerful Medrash, an intriguing Medrash, and it says like this: Hashem does not go ahead and elevate someone until he checks him out and he tests him out. And the Medrash gives an example. Avraham Avinu, Hashem tested him with 10 tests, and after he withstood all the 10 tests, then he blessed him. Like the verse says, Hashem Beirach as Avram Bakoil. So in other words, this that he says of Hashem Beirach as Avram Bakoil is a byproduct of him being tested. You won the test, Hashem knocked you out, he tested you, you were successful, you did not fall, and you stayed strong. Guess what? Now you have Bakoil everything. That's what the Medrash says. So the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, explains that the 10 tests that he was tested corresponds to the 10 spheroids. So he tested him with all the 10 tests, which are all the spheroids, but Koil is what? Pnimiyat, the internal part of Keter, the highest Sirah, which is not part of the calculation of the 10 Sirahs. In this level, the Pnimius, not the external part of Keter, the internal part of Keter, a person can't reach there. Through a test, you can elevate one sphere or another sphere, but Pnimius of Keter, you can't reach there. So after Avraham Avinu, he withstood all the tests, which basically every one of the tests correspond to the 1 in 10 spheroids. So over there, you can in Kabbalistic terms, it's called, you can create a Isus Tata, you can awaken that Sira. So then Hashem gave him a gift, Bakoil, which basically gave him the gift of Pnimis Kesed. So that someone says. You can say that this is why the verse says, V'Avram Zakein Baba Yomim, Abraham was old, coming in the days, V'Hashem Beirach Avram Bakoil. In other words, this that Avram was old, coming in his days, in other words, even though the fact is a person gets old and he's coming with his days, he's healthy, he's happy, it's also a blessing from Hashem. But nevertheless, the Torah attributes it to Avram. It says Avram Zakin Baba Yom. It doesn't say Hashem made him old in his days and he's still alive. It says Avram. However, when it comes to Koil, Avram, the Koil, that doesn't say Avram. It doesn't say that Avram has the Koil. It says Hashem gave him the blessing of Koil. So there is, you can say, the possible explanation is as follows. That Avram Avinu was blessed, when he was Zakein, he was able to get into old age, and by Yomim, his days are complete. Yes, it's 100, Hashem is a partner. But how does it come from? Who, so to speak, communicates with Hashem that you should be able to come to old age and you should become healthy, etc. That comes through your work, so Avram Zakein means, yes, true, ultimately everything from Hashem. But Avram did his part that Hashem should give him Baba Yomim. Through his work. However, this that he has of Hashem Bakoil, no, that's zero input in your part. That's strictly a gift from Hashem, and you cannot go ahead and do anything to make that happen. And that's why this blessing comes after the 10 tests. Because why after the 10 tests? If it's a gift from Hashem, why the 10 tests? And the answer is because we know there's a terminology in the Zohar. It says that like Hashem only allows himself to rest in something that's a complete vessel. So therefore, Hashem had to go. Avram had to go through the 10 tests, and he was a complete vessel. Now he got the gift from Hashem of Bakoil, and that's why it says Hashem beirachas Avram Bakoil. Now. So even though the Rebbe says, we know that Zakein Baba Yomim, Avram reached it. But the fact is, Zakein Baba Yomim is the level of Atik Yomin, which is basically a very high level. And like the Medrash says, that Hashem says to Avram Avinu, come and wear my garments, like it says, Avram Zakein Baba Yomim. And there's a commentary, Matnas Kuna says, this when it says that Abraham reached Baba Yomim, which means he was wearing the garments of Hashem, because Hashem is also called Atik Yomin. And the Tzemach Tzedek adds that even the idea of Zakein, which is Dikna, is also one of the garments of Hashem. It's also in the level of Atik Yoimim. And like it says, the garments are Ketela Chibash, which is like the 13 levels of 13, in Kabbalah it's called Yud Gimel Tikkun Dikna, 13 points of light. So therefore, what does that mean? What are we saying? We're saying is that Zakein Baba Yom, that originally said that's the one he reached on his own. And Be'er Bakoil, that's a gift, because you can't reach it. But the fact is, we know Zakein Baba Yom is also Atik. Shabbat explains and he says no. The fact is that when we say that the Zakein and Baba Yomim is Atik, it's not Atik itself, pure Atik. It's actually the lower level of Kessel, which is Arich, which is also called Atik Yomin at times. And you can say that Arich is called Atik Yoimim because you have in it, yes, the 7 lower levels of Atik in Arich. However, Koil is Atik itself. So in other words, the first part of the verse, Avram Zakein Baba Yomim, it's called Atik Yoimim, but it's really Arich that has within it an infusion of Atik. But Koil is actually Atik itself. Not only that, we said a step further, that even in Atik itself, it's the first 3 levels of Atik which never go into Arich. Up to the point you have the highest level of Atik, which is even higher than that. And like we said before, in the beginning of the Chassidic discourse, that Koil is the Helam Atzmi, it's much even deeper than Atik. And this, that we say that Zakein Baba Yomim is referred to Avram, it's like it says, Avram Zakein Baba Yomim, and because why? Because he's able to reach that level, because it's really Arich that has an infusion of Atik. However, when it comes to Koil, it says Hashem blessed him, because this Avram was Zakein Baba Yomim, it's the external part of Ketzer, and that he was able to accomplish. So you can say that's also the insight of when it says Zakein Baba Yamim is the garments of Hashem. With what the Alter Rebbe says, that what does Zakein mean? Zakein mean, it stands for Zeh Shekana Chachma. This is an acquired Chachma intellect or Torah, and Baba Yamim is referring to mitzvot, because this that Avram had, the garments of Hashem. How did he receive that? He received it by learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. So he'd like to explain this more in detail. And those Zakein and Baba Yam is two different levels. What wasn't two different levels? So Zakein, as we know in Kabbalah, it says the old, which again is Khan, is the beard, is referring to the 13 points of light. Yud Gimel Tkuna Dikna. So where does that reach? That reaches Moicha Stima da Arach, still in Arach, the lower part of Keter, but Moicha Stima, and Baba Yamim is Arach itself. In other words, and this that Arach actually is called Atik Yomim, is referring to the essence of Arach, the skull of Arach. So the two different levels are Zakein is basically the Moichas Tima of Arach, and Baba Yamim is actually Arach itself. And this is the connection of Zakein and Baba Yamim on high, which is basically the garments of Hashem, with these two ideas on a practical level. Why is that? Because Moichas Tima is referring to intellect, which is internalized, which that's connected to the idea of Torah. And the Galgalta, the skull of Arach, which is Makiv, is connected to mitzvahs. And through the fact that Avraham Avinu learned Torah, like we know Zakein Zeshakana Chachma, so he was able to bring in the point of Moichan Stima, of the intellect of Arach, and through that he was Baba Yam, which means he did the mitzvahs, he was able to bring in the idea of Galgalta, the idea of Arach, which is Baba Yam. So that's the two parts that Avraham Avinu did. By learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, he's able to draw down different levels of Arach. However, Koil, which is Atik itself, which is the higher part of Keter, which is Pnimius Keser, that you can't reach. And that's why it says Hashem blessed him, which basically it's a gift from Hashem, which comes as a gift. However, this gift from Hashem comes after you do your complete work. And after you do your part, then you receive the gift. And that's why Hashem blessed him with Koil. It comes after 10 tests, like we discussed before. Now, okay, so till now we learned that Avram Zakein Baba Yam is the basic learning Torah, doing mitzvahs in Arach, etc. But Koil is coming from Atik. And there explains it, and he says like this: even this idea of Koil, which we said is connected to Atik, which is higher than Baba Yam, which is Arach, in Atik there's different levels. And it's understood from the Chassidic discourse of the title of Avram Zakein, of the Tzemach Tzedek, that in the beginning it says that Avram was able to merit the level of Koil. How did he reach Koil? So you have to reach Koil, so you have to be a vessel. So there's different levels how you reach Koil. The first level the Tzemach Tzedek explains is by observing not transgressing any of the negative precepts. And even this level of Koil, he says it's Pnimius Atik, but how do you receive it? He received it by not transgressing the negative precepts. And he explains over there that Hashem Verech Hashem B'Koil is after it says Baba Yamim. Why? Because Yamim is referring to the positive commandments, and Baba Yamim is doing the positive commandments. So he reached the level of Arach. However, this that he reached the level of Koil, that came by not transgressing the negative precepts, which basically is Atik, which is higher than Arach. Okay, so the first teaching there, Tzemach Tzedek says that the first part that he achieved on his own, that's coming to the positive commandments, and Koil he achieved what? By not transgressing negative commandments. Later on he says, no, how did Avraham Avinu achieve the level of Koil? He achieved it by being successful in the 10 tests that Hashem tried to test him, like it says in the Medrash. And you can say that the Koil that Avraham Avinu reached that level through passing all the tests is higher level than not transgressing the negative precepts. So every says you can explain what the explanation behind it is like this. Because that level of Atik, which is the internal part of Keser, which is connected to the idea of Koil, which he reached by not transgressing the negative precepts. So the fact is that has a connection to the level of Ishtalshus, the way the world flows. And therefore, the work that Avraham Avinu put in, that he received that level, it has to do with based on his efforts and where he can reach. But nevertheless, since Atik is higher, So therefore, you can't achieve it by doing a mitzvah. I'm going to get it. By doing a mitzvah, you can get it. But by not doing, that's how you receive it. Now, so that is one level. So the first level, we said that he achieved it by not transgressing the negative precepts. So technically, he didn't do anything, because if you're doing, then how can you reach it? It's infinite. But by not doing, okay. The next level, he says, the level of atik, which we said is koil, that he reached that level of through tests. That is totally disconnected from the world, totally. Why? Because that's referring to the helam ha'atzmi, the total concealment. Why is that? Because when a person serves Hashem, when you're serving Hashem, you can't compare when it's totally when you totally, it's not about you at all. But the reason why you're connecting is you're being tested. You're not doing what you want to do. You want to do one thing, Hashem is testing you, and you do what Hashem wants. And we know the fact is that's something which is a gift from Hashem, because you can't put yourself in a test. And we actually pray every day, don't put me to the test. But by being tested, and you overcome the test, then you can reach the highest levels. Okay, so what the Rebbe is saying is like this, to recap. Avraham Avinu reached the level of koil, either through the lower level, the first level, by not transgressing the negative, so that's, you're not doing anything, you're reaching level of koil, but still connected to you. Or the deeper level is by being tested, then you're totally being tested, it's totally not about you, and then you reach a deeper level of koil. And also you could say, and this way it says Hashem blessed Avram with the koil only after what? He didn't get him after the first test, the second, the fifth, only after the 10 tests. Why? Because the 10 tests correspond to the 10 sfirot. And the fact is, completion happens when it's connected to 10. You have to hit every one of the 10 sfirot. That's in general. Deeper, Rebbe can say that in order to reach the level of koil, and like we explained, koil is like it's atik, the previous act, which is totally disconnected and has no connection with the way things flow in the world. How do you achieve the greatest connection? That comes when you do the work without any limits. And since the 10 spheroids are connected to the 10 tests, and the 10 tests are connected to the 10 spheroids, so it's connected to levels, and it's connected to the 10 utterances, which is actually lower than the 10 spheroids. So this, that he was able to withstand the tests, so it's still finite, it's still limited. So he needed the final test, the 10 test, which was what's the 10 test? The Akedah, bringing a son up as a sacrifice on the altar, which is the most powerful of the test. Why is that? Because that's the test which basically has no limits. Why is that? Even though on one hand you can say, what do you mean? It's part of the 10 tests. But you can say that even though it's part of the 10 tests, there's a component which is above the 10 spheroids. Why is that? Like he brings from the Medrash says that the verse says, Achad Asa Yoim, 11 days from Chorev. So what is it? So the Medrash says, what is that referring to? It's referring to the utterance that Hashem said, Anoichi, the first utterance of the 10 commandments, which basically we know that's the first one, it's the most powerful one. And it's explained in Chassidut that Anoichi is called 11. What's the connection with Anoichi to 11? It's part of the 10 commandments. Because the Anoichi, even though it's part, but it's connected to Kesser. That's why it's called the 11th. And we know in Keter there's 2 levels. There's the external part of Kesser, which basically is part of the 10 Sfiros. And there's the internal part of Kesser, which is not part of the 10 Sfiros. It's totally above it. So the word Anoichi, on one hand, it's part of the 10 commandments. That's what, from the external part of Kesser. But from the internal part, yes, it's part of the 10, but it's the 11th. And it's not part. In other words, it's one and it's not part of the counting. So you can say also, when it comes to the test of the Akedah, which is the most powerful test, more than all the tests before, because Hashem said, now I know. It's like the level of Kesser, which is higher than all the spheres, which means it has both components. On one hand, it's part of it, on the other hand, it's above it. Why is that? So we're going to talk now in depth about this powerful test of the Akedah. In other words, this that Avraham Avinu, we know his nature, his default setting was he was a kind person. Now his kindness wasn't just because he was kindness, in his source he was kind. So someone that in his bones and his flesh and his source, it's all about chesed, how does he go ahead and bring his son as a sacrifice? But nevertheless, he went ahead and he brought his son as a sacrifice. he took the knife to cut him, which is opposite than his nature, not only his own nature, even in the source. And Hashem says, oh, now I know that you're God-fearing. Only now, not the 9 tests before. Because the 9 tests before wasn't opposite his nature. But now, after you pass the test of the Akedah, now I know you're God-fearing. Why? Because now I know you have real awe for Hashem, and you have the real power, there's real strength. Because all the tests, so that's the first component. The first component is, before we get to the second, the first component, the difference between all the tests and this test is, all the tests, he was following Hashem, it wasn't against his nature. Here he had to go against his nature, he's an Isha Chesed. How does he do something like Gvura? Now I know that you, that's point number 1. The second powerful idea of the 10th test is, all the test was all about himself. His test, he was whatever he was sacrificing. The 10th test, he was sacrificing his son. And we know the love that a person has for a son, and especially for your only son, is even greater. Think about this. The love that a person has for their only son is greater than the love that they have for themselves. And like it says, everything that a person has, they're going to give for their son. So therefore, the test of the Akedah is much higher than all the tests before for 2 reasons again. One is, again, because basically he went against his nature, and B, you're dealing with your son. Because you can say, the first idea of the test in the Akedah, which means he was going opposite his nature. So, nevertheless, he was going opposite of nature, but still him. So, from that component, it has a connection to the previous test. It was still about Avinu. But it was higher. Yes, it was higher. And you can say that the Akedah proved that all the tests were real, because obviously it has a connection to them. Because if there's no connection, how can you say it proves for that? So the first reason is similar to the external part of Keser, which is Arach. Because even though it's higher than the 10 spheres, but it's the source of them. And it's actually, Arach is considered counted part of the spheres. But the second component of the Akedah, which means you're dealing with his son, that's something totally new. And that component of son was not part of the first 9 tests. First 9 tests, fine. Abraham wanted to be radical. He wanted to go off the charts, no problem. But here, your son, something totally new. And that's connected to the level in the sphere of the internal part of Keser, Atik, which means it's totally disconnected. And that's why he says, Bi Nishmati. And as Hashem said, literally, me, the essence of me, which is Atik. And why is that? Yes, because you weren't going to hold back and you're going to bring up your son, someone else, your son. So based on that, we'll understand, after Avraham Avinu was able to withstand the Akedah, then Hashem blessed him Bakoil. Because this that Avraham Avinu was able to bring his son up on the Akedah, it means there's no limits. And that's when Hashem blessed him Bakoil Pnimius Atik. The internal part of Atik, which we said in the beginning of the Chassidic discourse, Hela Ma'atzmi, the essential concealment. Now, this powerful idea of bringing down Hela Ma'atzmi, what's the intent of drawing down this powerful Hela Ma'atzmi that Hashem blessed him? Hashem blessed Abraham. So the goal is not that he should have access to the concealed essence of concealed where it is. And everyone say, go open the door and look at it. No. The goal is to bring it down. And make that Hela Ma'atzmi, bring it down. Reveal it. Without any limits. And like the Zohar says, what does it mean by koil? Atar, it's a place. Then ahar d'lei pasuk mimeil alman. It means he was able to connect to it and bring it down as much as he wanted. And this is the connection between the inside of the Zohar that says that koil is Hela Ma'atzmi and Rashi. Rashi says it's a son. But koil is, we said, the numerical value of a son. What's the connection between the two? Because Avraham Avinu, which is chesed, what kind of chesed? Of Atik, of internal part of Keser. And Yitzchok, which is Gevura. But what Gevura? Gevura of Atik. And that's why by Yitzchok it says, Va'arbe Zaroi. I'm going to multiply his seeds, I'm going to give him Yitzchok. Where does it come, the heavy flow? Va'arbe, it's going to be a lot of blessings. That comes specifically from the severity of Yitzchok. An intense flow. Like it says in the Siddur of mysticism, in the Chassidic discourse that starts to understand the idea of Kiyah Shofar based on the intent of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, so in other words, the goal is to take that and bring it down with tremendous flow through Yitzchak. Even though, one second, if we're getting involved in tremendous, in a lot, what do you mean? And now we're getting to details. But nevertheless, so you're going away from the concealment where it's only one. But nevertheless, he doesn't know. The intensity and the multiplicity that comes from the severity of Yitzchak is that even in the details, what's revealed? The source. The source is they come from the essential concealment that is totally concealed, but it comes down into the world. And by going ahead and making that in the details, what's recognized is the simplicity. What happens then is, what gets revealed is the internal and the essential part of everything. That the fact is, it's not limited based on the description. And it can come in, that simplicity and that concealment can come into every single detail. And that's why it says in the future, what are we going to say? That we're going to say that who's our father? Yitzchak's our father. Abraham, we don't know. Why? Because when Mashiach comes, what's going to be revealed? The internal part of Atik. And in order to reveal the internal part of Atik, that comes specifically through the Gevura, the power and the strength of Yitzchak. And that's why when it came to Hashem blessed Avram Bakoil, and he blessed him Bakoil, and that's an introduction, like we said before, to the marriage of Yitzchak, because the ultimate intent is that Pnimiyat HaKeser, the most powerful level of Keter, and Pnimiyat HaKeser Atik, should come down and reveal in the lowest levels. How does that happen? That happens specifically by the union of Yitzchak and Rivka. Why? Because Yitzchak and Rivka, which basically is the source, and the source of both of them, both of Yitzchak and both Rivka, is in Gvura of Atik. But Yitzchak is in the level of Ma, and Rivka is in the level of Ban. And the revelation that comes down to the lower world comes through the name Ban. And that's why it says Hashem blessed Avraham with everything, as an introduction to the marriage of Yitzchak and Rivka, because the ultimate intent of this blessing is that it should come down to the world of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, until this physical world, up to the place where Rivka was, like we said, she was like a rose amongst thorns. That even over there, what should be revealed? Pnimius Atik should be revealed where Rivka was. Now this that the Torah tells us, that Avram merited the level of koil by going ahead and being successful in the 10 tests, like everything in Torah we know is teaching us a lesson, that it's a lesson that has to be similar to the lesson of the tests. In other words, that we have to serve Hashem, we have to pray and study and do mitzvahs with tremendous effort. Not like push a button and it happens. No, you got to spend time learning Torah, thinking about it, praying and doing a mitzvah, but you have to do it with effort. And doing an effort, not a standard effort more than you normally do. Similarly to the test that Avraham Avinu went through. And that's why it says and the Zohar says on the verse, Ayin lo rasa. The eye didn't see, Yasa lemechak eloi. So the question is, what does it mean mechak eloi? So it says that those that basically they sweat and try to understand wisdom. And this idea in the Zohar comes to continuation when it says bakoil. And what does it mean by trying to understanding by toiling in Torah? Like we're learning here, we're learning Torah by learning in Torah, but not just learning Torah, putting in effort more than you normally do. And like the Zohar says clearly, the dachkin lamila dechmosa, which means you want to understand it, and not only level of Or Yashar straight, but you want to backwards and forwards. And by doing that, you're actually drawing in. That by learning Torah that way, what that affects that when you do the mitzvahs, also the mitzvah is done with tremendous effort. Like we know that what's the reason, the debate is what's greater, Talmud or mitzvot? And the answer is Talmud's greater because it brings you to mitzvah. So the idea of learning Torah and toiling in Torah will bring you to toiling and doing a mitzvah. And there's also the putting in the effort in spreading Chassidus, like we're learning Torah on the YouTube, spreading out the teachings all over the world. Besides the fact of the effort that you have to have by learning the Torah and understanding the wellsprings of Torah, but you also have to put in effort to spread the wellsprings and to bring the wellsprings that even people that are outside, amongst the thorns. And by doing that, the big prize, you're going to have Osimar, the Malka Mashiach is going to come. And then, when Mashiach is going to come, we're going to reveal the essential concealment, ayin leirasa. And the Rebbe finishes off with a powerful blessing. It should happen b'mheira v'yameinu mamash. So here we have another powerful Chassidic discourse of the Rebbe with the powerful blessing of Bakoil. And the fact is, we all have the power to bring down the blessing. The Rebbe says by learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, and spreading Chassidus. And let's hope our next class will be in Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh. Have a great and blessed week. Shavua Tov.